In 1967, one of the deadliest bridge collapses in U.S. history occurred in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The Silver Bridge, a suspension bridge spanning the Ohio River, collapsed during rush hour on December 15th, sending 46 vehicles into the freezing water below and killing 46 people. The disaster was caused by a single faulty eye-bar, a structural component that had developed a small crack due to years of stress and corrosion. This tiny defect, known as a stress corrosion crack, ultimately led to the catastrophic failure of the entire bridge. The collapse of the Silver Bridge occurred so quickly that many witnesses described it as a horrifying chain reaction, almost like watching dominoes fall. The failure began with I-bar 330, where a small, undetectable crack, just 0.1 inches deep, caused the I-bar to snap under the weight of the evening rush hour traffic. With no redundancy built into the bridge's design, the collapse was instantaneous. Vehicles and passengers plummeted 80 feet into the icy Ohio River, trapping many in the wreckage. Rescue efforts were hampered by the freezing temperatures and swift currents, making recovery a daunting and heartbreaking task. Survivors described the chaos as surreal, with the sound of the bridge collapsing echoing like an explosion. The Silver Bridge, built in 1928, was revolutionary for its time, using a then-new type of suspension design with I-bar links and rocker towers. However, the design did not account for modern traffic loads, as vehicles in the 1960s were significantly heavier than those in the 1920s. The lack of redundancy in the bridge's design meant that when one part failed, the whole structure gave way. Investigators determined that the bridge's design was not only vulnerable, but also outdated. The use of heat-treated carbon steel, common in the 1920s, became a critical flaw as the material's susceptibility to stress corrosion cracking was not well understood at the time. Additionally, routine inspections were minimal, with no technology available to detect internal flaws like the crack in I-bar 330. The tragedy exposed significant gaps in infrastructure safety and highlighted the dangers of relying on aging structures without thorough evaluations. In response to the disaster, Congress passed the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1968, which mandated regular inspections of all bridges in the United States.